Hello and welcome to On the Road to Beijing, our weekly countdown to the Olympic Games. We are into the final stretch and Beijing is working hard on rehearsing against the clock ahead of the opening ceremony, which kicks off at 8 p.m. on August 8th. The nation that invented fireworks will be using them to full effect. The Chinese capital is gearing up to host the party of all parties. A host of extras is being put through their paces, although theirs is an exercise in silence, as each of them has been required to sign a confidentiality agreement.
You'd think the Olympics had kicked off early, but these dazzling pyrotechnics were just the rehearsal for the opening ceremony. There was watertight security around the run-through, and what'll happen inside the stadium, known as the Bird's Nest, is still top secret. Curious spectators will have to wait another 3 weeks before they get a glimpse of the full show. But for these bystanders, the firework extravaganza was enough to whet their appetites.
It's really beautiful here. I've never been here before. I've just seen it on TV. I think it's much more beautiful in real life.
The only dark cloud hovering over the ceremony is the threat of rain. There are fears that August could bring wet weather. For the moment, fingers are crossed that the lucky number 8 will bring Beijing good weather on the 8th day of the 8th month for the opening ceremony of the 2008 Olympics.
The arrival of the marathon runners is one of the major events planned in the impressive Olympic Stadium, as always on the final day of the Games. Runners will complete the 42-kilometer race, a course snaking through the Chinese capital along a route that began in the infamous Tian'anmen Square at the foot of the main entrance to the Forbidden City. Let's follow one marathon expert's description of the race.
Tian'anmen Square, central Beijing. In Chinese, the Gate of Heavenly Peace. Victor Rothlin is a marathon runner, one of the best, and his next race at the Beijing Olympics starts here, where the student riots of 1989 were brutally put down. But right now, he's got little time for history. He's all about winning the Olympics.
Of course, I will be very, very nervous, but also concentrate to race the race of the life, and hopefully be very successful.
Mental strength is key, and Rothlin must stay focused, even in such grand surroundings. Soon enough, the Swiss is off for a walk which quickly turns into a reconnaissance mission. There are 42 kilometers, 195 meters of track to cover, and Rothlin knows the halfway point can make or break a race.
It will be one step less than you have already done to go to the finish line, and if you don't feel like in the morning running, in the normal training, at this point you already can forget about the race. At this point you have to feel as easy as possible. It should be just jogging.
But just jogging can be a challenge in the heat, humidity and pollution of Beijing. Rothlin can deal with the heat. He trained in Kenya for 10 years. He can also perform despite humidity, but pollution he fears.
Conditions. This is the biggest battle we have to win. So against those conditions, especially the pollution, it will be a hard fight. Your lungs will be burning and your eyes will be crying, and we can't change it. That's the pity.
With the halfway point behind him, Rothlin will head north. He hopes to be among the first to reach the Olympic Stadium, and that is when he will need his last boost of energy.
It's the mind who runs, and you have trained so many years to run into stadium, to be successful, that the mind is strong enough to run against your body, and sometimes you're in this funny feeling, the run is high and you don't feel anything, you just fly through the stadium.
Rothlin hopes this funny feeling will carry him over the finish line first and put him in the same league as his idol, Swiss athlete Markus Reifel. But for the moment, Rothlin is still running after his dream.
As we've just seen, the marathon is an incredible test of endurance, and adding to the challenges of those taking part, athletes will have air pollution to contend with. The Chinese authorities are going to great pains to reduce fumes and improve air quality, even calling on factories to be closed and putting up sensors in order to monitor pollution levels. But it's important to note that pollution levels are not measured to quite the same standards as here in Europe.
The air over Beijing has looked like this for several weeks, a mixture of heat, humidity and haze that hardly looks healthy. Ordinarily, that doesn't prevent local authorities from giving the day a blue sky rating, meaning the air is safe to breathe. 2 out of every 3 days last year got the blue sky stamp of approval. Results from across the city are collected here, but this day there's bad news. The pollution index hits 115, above safety levels. The air is considered slightly polluted. The experts are not too worried.
The air quality poses no problem. It's more the raised temperature and humidity that makes the air unpleasant. But the air is not that polluted.
Beijing calculates its air quality using monitoring stations like this one. The problem is samples are no longer taken at 2 inner-city stations. Instead, the calculations use 3 other stations outside the city, like near the Great Wall, where the air is much cleaner. It's led to accusations of data manoeuvring to get better air quality results for the whole of Beijing. But the real problem lies in the data analysis. Julien Scholl, a young French engineer, sells air purifiers and protection masks in Beijing. And he says, in no uncertain terms, the way the Chinese measure pollution differs entirely from the French.
What's different is the way of expressing pollution to the general public. In Paris, we have an index that's different from Beijing's, and what we would call bad air, the Chinese consider good.
Beijing's pollution this day far exceeds levels deemed safe by Paris criteria, and that's the case just about every day of the year.
And briefly, South Africa's double amputee athlete Oscar Pistorius saw his hopes of running at next month's Olympic Games succumb to a final blow on Wednesday as he failed to record the minimum qualifying time for the 400 meters. The 21-year-old timed a personal best, but it was still well outside the standard qualifying time. British sprinter Dwayne Chambers won't go either. He failed in his High Court bid to overturn a British Olympic Association ban on Friday and will not be able to run in Beijing. Beijing, where last Sunday 51 Chinese track and field athletes, including Olympic champion Liu Qiang, promised to participate cleanly in the Olympics and avoid performance-enhancing drugs. The pledge, where athletes raised their fists in the air and read from a declaration prepared by the Beijing Organizing Committee for the Olympic Games, is yet another move by the Games hosts to show that they are serious about doping. And that brings us to the end of this week's edition of On the Road to Beijing. Thank you for watching and see you at the same time next week.